Hello, welcome to this week's episode of How's the Market, Pensacola. Hope everybody had a good weekend. It was Fiesta weekend, so if you didn't get out and catch the parade was actually a little light on a crowd, and it probably has something to do with these record heats. I'm in one of the crews here in town, and well, it was a little light. But we're not here to talk about parades. We're not here to talk about fun times this past weekend. We're here to talk about the market. Let's go.
I'm a man on a mission.
My mission is to help people break through all the noise out there, and
Don't need no permission.
I want to help you get to actual truth. Don't you just want the truth?
All right. So, as you can tell, I'm not in the studio this week. I actually have a conference, and it's nice when I have a conference and it's in town. I don't have to go anywhere. So, I'm actually on my own back porch sipping some coffee. Uh, but I'm going to shoot the show because I wanted to make sure that we got it up so you could have the information that you needed. So, as always, I always start with this slide right here. It says if it's a 6 to 7 months worth of inventory, you have a neutral market. Less than 6 months worth of inventory is a seller's market. Greater than 7 months is a buyer's market. What the slide doesn't say, and I try and say in every show, less than 3 months is a hyper seller's market. More than 9 months is a hyper buyer's market. And that comes really into play. I just had a client this past weekend. Excuse me, it's like 5 in the morning as I'm shooting this. So I need my coffee. I had a client that I worked with this past weekend, and they were trying to get all their ducks in a row, working to get some stuff done. And I kept telling them this price point is a hyper seller's market. If we don't pull the trigger, I don't know that it's going to stay here. And I'm like, well, we got this one thing we got to get taken care of, and then it was just one more thing, and it was one more thing, and we lost the house. We wasn't able to get it. So when I say it's a hyper seller's market, and when I tell people get your ducks in a row first before we look at a property, then we can look at the property, then we can figure out what's going on with it. I mean it. So let's switch over and see. We're going to start with which county? Escambia County. Let's start with Escambia County. On we pull up the slide right here. On the left-hand side over here is what the price point is for the list price point, and on the right is your month's inventory. So if you're new to the show, that's why I do that slide first, because now you can see what is the hyper seller's market, what is the seller's market, what's the neutral market, and what's the buyer's market in Escambia County. Basically, anything under 200,000 has 2 months worth of inventory or under. Well, 50 to 100 looks like it's got 2.3. Anything under 200,000 in Escambia County is a hyper seller's market. Those properties don't last long, even if they're not in real good shape. They do not last long. So that's a point. How does that mean to sellers? I'm sitting here talking to buyers. Buyers, you need to be prepared, especially if you enter that market. How does that work for sellers? Well, it means you can be a little aggressive with your pricing. I had a client worked with about 2 weeks ago. Apparently, there was another agent in town that had swung by and talked to them and said, you would be lucky to get about 120,000 for this property. When I did my comparables and look, I'm not one of those that overprices things. So I told him, I said, no, I honestly believe it's just about 140 to 142,000 is what this property is worth. But I also do this show every week, and I know that if we look right here between 100 and 150, there's 1.5 months worth of inventory, or 1.6, excuse me. And between 150 and 200, there's 1.5. So I know that price is hyper seller's market. So I think we can be a little aggressive with our listing. I think it's worth 100, 142, somewhere around there. Let's put it on at 150. I don't want to put it on at 200. That's just, no, that's too aggressive. But let's put it on 150 and see what happens. We put it on at 150, had 9 showings in 3 days. It's now under contract. And it's under contract for more than the value that I thought it was going to be. I can't really go into details on what it's actually under contract for because it's under contract right now. It's not sold, but I will let you know how that turned out once it gets sold. But that's what I mean when I say we can be a little more aggressive as a seller. You can take things up slightly, okay, in those price points. Between 350 down to 200, still considered a seller's market. So anything under 350 in Escambia County is considered a seller's market. It's not necessarily a hyper seller's market. So you can't necessarily be aggressive, but pendulum is not at the middle. So buyers need to be prepared for that. Buyers need to understand that you've got to get your ducks in a row. You've got to get your pre-approval first. You've got to get all that stuff done first then you can move in. Now, from 350 to 450 in Escambia County, neutral market. So right at that 6 months inventory. And we still have this little pocket. It's come down some because if you remember a couple weeks ago, this was almost 12 months. Between 450 and 500, there's a little pocket. And it's that is pretty much the definition of a hyper buyer's market. So you got 9 months worth of inventory. It's not a lot of properties because if you look here, it says the number of actives. My number of actives is only 36. My number of pendings is 14. So there's the whole formula here that says this is how we know there's 9 months worth of inventory. So if nothing new comes on the market, it's going to take 9 months for us to get these 36 off. Just not much of an appetite for it. Comes back down a little bit between 500 and 600, but not much. This is pretty much the buyer's market. If you look at this, I like how this looks. I like how Escambia County is starting to look. It's looking a little more like Santa Rosa County has most of the year. You've got a hyper seller's market all the way up to 200. You've got between 350 and 200 a seller's market. Then we hit a neutral market from 350 to, let's say, 600. I'm going to because if we move this down to 8.9, it goes yellow. Okay, so we got a seller's or a buyer's market, or a neutral market, excuse me, a neutral market between 350 and 600. Then when you get above 600, we have got a buyer's market. So the luxury in Escambia County is definitely a buyer's market with the 650 to 700 range having 3.5 years worth of inventory. So if you're in that range, just understand it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time unless you really price it right, unless you really got some marketing right. It's probably going to take some time because there's just not as many buyers out there for that price point right now. Let's go take a look at Santa Rosa County now. Let's see how that looks. Okay, here in Santa Rosa County, it's interesting. If you remember, it was a hyper seller's market, 200,000 and under in Escambia County. In Santa Rosa County, what has changed, because it used to be 250 and under was the hyper sellers, but even that 250 to 300 is now a hyper sellers market. So anything under 300,000 in Santa Rosa County is considered a hyper sellers market. And look, this is a new interesting thing this week. 300 to 350 still a seller's market, but 350 to 400 comes back to a hyper sellers market. So things are moving. Of course, it's June. This is the kids just got out of school. This is when a lot of people are moving. So there's not much inventory. So if you've got anything that you're considering selling under 400,000 in Santa Rosa County, you can pretty much be aggressive with your pricing. You need to be aggressive with your marketing. You need to differentiate because if you look, although the appetite's there, there's also a lot of properties here. So if you look right here at the number of active, there's still a lot of properties there. Now, 4 to 450 winds up being a seller or a neutral market. 450 to 500 kind of skews back towards the seller side. And then as we get above 500, that's your normal, okay, that's hyper buyer's market with same thing. And it's funny, it's the same exact months. That's 650 to 700. And Escambia and Santa Rosa County has got 3.5 years. So again, this looks normal, but this 350 to 400 has skewed down to a hyper seller's market. So if you're a buyer in Santa Rosa County and basically you're looking at anything under 400, you need to have the pre-approval ready. You need to move. All right. I know I've been talking a lot about the sellers being able to differentiate and being a little aggressive. You need to move. And if somebody's got something at 400 and you really want it, don't come in offering 360. I had a property in Santa Rosa County that was, or no, it was in Escambia County, excuse me, that we had on at 500. And within 3 days, I got an offer of 412 or 420 or something like that. I don't know. And the seller was just like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that because that's just too aggressive on the buyer side. And if you look at these numbers, those markets are not buyer friendly. I hate to use the word friendly because people are wanting to sell their house. Obviously, it wouldn't be on the market if they didn't. But it's not. You're not going to negotiate 20% off of a price on that because they can just wait because it's not taking very long. Look at these months. I mean, 0 to 50. This is the first time we've seen anything. And there's one property, and it's listed at 43,000. And if I were to guess, without even pulling up the MLS, just running off this report, it's a lot. All right, so at least it shows something. But if you remember the last two shows, there was nothing. Not at all. So that is how the market's going right now. I hope that we brought you a little value. Why did I use the word we? I guess I need more coffee. We brought you a little value this week and showing you just the numbers. I don't do any fluff. I always just try and tell you the truth. If I did bring you any value, do me a favor. Whether you're on YouTube, subscribe. If you're on Facebook, like the page. If you're on Instagram, double tap and then follow. Okay, that first. Second, share it. Share it. I'm trying to get more people this information so they can make informed decisions. I have seen some people that saw my video on my Facebook page about helping without any expectations, and I've been getting quite a few questions actually, not even in this area. I got a couple questions in Central and South Florida about contracts. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't answer those. I did get about 5 of those just as DMs going, hey, can you look at this contract and tell me if this is legal? I cannot give you legal advice, sorry. I did get accepted into law school, but I didn't go. So I can't go practicing law. But if I can help you, I will. But do me that favor if you wouldn't. Hit like, hit share, and give me a comment. Tell me if there's anything else you would like to see in these shows. Thanks for watching. Have a great, great week.
I'm a man on a mission.
My mission is to help people break through all the noise out there, and
Don't need no permission.
I want to help you get to actual truth. Don't you just want the truth?